Since the birth of modern entertainment, symbols have never been just decoration. They were crafted, chosen, and placed with purpose. Silent tools of power hidden in plain sight. What few realize is that as early as 1929, secret societies were already experimenting with the manipulation of the mind through carefully constructed images and sounds. While the public saw cartoons, musicals, and fairy tales, behind the curtain, a different agenda was unfolding. Have you ever wondered why certain images repeat across decades? Why certain stories carry echoes of rituals far older than Hollywood itself? Think about it. Castles shimmering with occult geometry, characters bound by ritualistic arcs, melodies that linger like incantations. Disney, rising to global influence, became more than entertainment. It became a stage, a perfect canvas to embed hidden symbols invisible to the untrained eye, yet powerful enough to bypass logic and nestle in the subconscious. Was this coincidence? Or continuity? Did these images evolve naturally, or were they part of a dark agenda passed down from secret societies, using storytelling as a modern form of ritual? What you'll discover here may surprise you. We'll peel back the layers of symbols and rituals that shaped not just movies, but the way entire generations dream, consume, and believe. From the eye concealed in logos to the subtle repetition of geometric codes, from ancient chants reimagined as melodies to the manipulation of collective awe, the threads connect entertainment to forbidden knowledge in ways most people never stop to question. Did you notice how certain images feel strangely familiar, as if you've seen them long before you ever stepped into a theater? Could that be the unseen hand of mind control, weaving symbols into our very sense of wonder? Tonight, we step into that hidden portal together. Write in the comments, "I see the hidden signs," and subscribe, not just to follow, but to continue this journey into the unseen, where every revelation opens another door. Because behind the innocence of fairy tales may lie a truth far stranger and far darker than we were ever meant to believe. The deeper you wander into the so-called kingdom of fantasy, the more you begin to notice patterns that are too precise to be dismissed as coincidence. Between enchanted castles and smiling characters, something older hides, ancient codes carefully embedded in frames designed to feel innocent. The all-seeing eye, gazing from the shadows of a tower. The eye of Horus concealed in background art. Pentagrams woven into the geometry of doors and windows. The number 33, sacred in Masonic tradition, appearing in places that seem meaningless to the casual eye, but deliberate to anyone who knows the language of hidden symbols. From 1955 to 1984, films that entertained millions also carried whispers of a darker agenda, one that blurred the line between fantasy and ritual. Imagine the power of reaching not a few, initiates gathered in a temple, but entire generations seated in theaters, eyes wide open, minds unguarded. The screen itself becomes the altar, the film the ritual, the audience the congregation. The colors, the music, the shapes, all work together to implant suggestion beneath the surface of delight. Secret societies had long known the potency of images repeated in ritual. Now they had found the perfect delivery system: cinema, a medium where forbidden knowledge could be encoded, disguised as wonder, transmitted across nations without resistance. Consider the castle, the central image of this empire. Its design echoes Gothic cathedrals and Masonic lodges, constructed with geometry that carries psychological influence. Children see magic. The subconscious sees power. The eye hidden in its spires is not decoration. It is invocation. The number 33 appearing in release schedules, addresses, or background details is not chance. It is continuity. Ancient codes translated into modern storytelling, ensuring the dark agenda flows quietly beneath the surface of culture. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." Researchers who examined the frames noticed how these cues were placed in moments of heightened emotion. A triumphant song, a scene of awe, a resolution where good seems to conquer evil. It is in those instants, when defenses drop, when the heart opens, that the symbols strike deepest. Occult rituals have always worked this way. Emotion first, symbol second, transformation third. What changes is not only the story on screen, but the perception of reality itself. Have you ever felt nostalgia so powerful it binds you to a brand, to a memory, to an image? That bond may not be accidental, but engineered. And here lies the unsettling question. If these symbols were present in the so-called golden age of animation, carefully inserted into films between 1955 and 1984, what might be hidden in the decades that followed? If early cinema already carried the fingerprints of secret societies, how much more refined have the methods become in the age of digital illusions, where every pixel can be coded, every sound wave manipulated, every frame a potential vessel for unseen influence? But that's only the surface. Let's go deeper. Because the more we uncover, the more it becomes clear that fantasy was never just fantasy. It was preparation. And the truth behind the curtain may be far stranger than the stories themselves. Researchers digging into the golden age of animation found something unsettling. Frames that should have been harmless, filled with innocence and fantasy, carried whispers of something else. Rituals not meant for the surface world. Hidden sequences resembled ceremonies of Babylon, where gods were invoked through geometry, light, and sound. Others mirrored Kabbalistic practices, patterns repeated to summon hidden power. And in 1966, the first documented case appeared, alchemical symbols flickering subliminally in an animation, invisible to most, yet absorbed by all. Was this creativity gone astray, or the hand of secret societies embedding forbidden knowledge into culture? The unsettling detail is how these rituals were disguised as storytelling. A character raising their arms in triumph mirrored ancient invocations. A sequence of shapes dancing across the screen echoed diagrams used in occult rituals. Music built in rhythmic layers that matched ceremonies described in ancient codes. To children, it was magic. To adults, entertainment. To those who understood the hidden symbols, it was programming. The subconscious does not argue, it absorbs. And when millions watched the same images, the collective mind was shaped by what it could not consciously resist. Imagine a generation growing up with these images repeated year after year. The symbols carved into memory, the rituals rehearsed in silence. This is not simply psychological influence. It is a ritual performed on a mass scale, with the screen as altar and the audience as participants. What once required temples and priests now unfolded in cinemas and living rooms. And the architects of this unseen design ensured that the most powerful tool of manipulation, mind control, was hidden beneath joy, laughter, and wonder. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." The question that lingers is not whether these rituals happened, but who orchestrated them. Who decided that ancient ceremonies should be revived in moving images? Who chose to merge occult rituals with modern technology, creating a seamless fusion of past and present? The fingerprints point towards secret societies whose influence already stretched into politics, finance, and architecture. But here, they found a new weapon, a ritual disguised as art, a dark agenda woven into the very fabric of culture. And this leaves us with a disturbing possibility. If rituals of the past were once confined to hidden chambers, what does it mean that they now reach millions at once? If every story, every melody, every hidden symbol carries echoes of ancient invocations, then the architects of this design may already control not just what we see, but what we believe. And if that is true, then the real question is not what was hidden in the past, but what remains unseen in the images of today. By the 1980s, the stage of manipulation expanded in ways the early architects of propaganda could only dream of. digital projection, cable television, and new advances in sound, design created a perfect canvas for techniques refined over decades in shadows. Reports began to surface, claims that beneath cheerful melodies and dazzling colors, hidden layers pulsed with intent, frequencies buried in soundtracks, too low or too high for conscious detection, yet potent enough to stir emotion, fear, or euphoria. Colors tuned to trigger instinctive reactions, bypassing reason. Psychologists gave it a clinical name, subliminal stimulus programming. But those who traced its lineage knew it for what it was: the continuation of forbidden knowledge, adapted to modern technology. Imagine sitting in front of a glowing screen. The story unfolds, the music swells, the colors shift. To the conscious mind, it is entertainment. To the subconscious, it is ritual. The frequencies resonate with hidden parts of the brain. The hues align with ancient codes once used in temples. And slowly, the line between art and programming blurs. Was this creativity or psychological influence, engineered with precision? What began in laboratories during MKUltra had now evolved into global broadcasts, reaching millions without their awareness. And what could secret societies do with that kind of hidden power? Whispers suggested that the same principles extended into physical spaces. Theme parks, built as empires of joy, layered with subtle frequencies projected through speakers, designed not only to immerse, but to influence. Colors chosen not for beauty, but for manipulation. Ritual disguised as spectacle, where millions willingly participated without suspecting they were subjects of an unseen experiment. Have you ever felt a sudden wave of emotion in such places? Excitement, nostalgia, even sadness, without knowing why? Perhaps it was not chance at all, but the work of technologies invisible to the eye. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." The unsettling part is how invisible this system became. Unlike symbols carved into stone, unlike ceremonies performed in secret halls, these tools hide in everyday experience. You cannot turn them off because you do not even realize they are there. A melody repeats and lodges itself in memory. A color floods the screen and triggers desire. A hidden frequency hums, unnoticed, and suddenly the crowd moves as one. This is not persuasion, it is orchestration. The dark agenda thrives precisely because it does not announce itself. It hides in shadows, in the unseen layers of sound and light. And so we must ask, if subliminal technologies were already reported in the 1980s, how far have they advanced in the decades since? If early experiments could stir emotion, what might modern systems, armed with algorithms, global networks, and biometric data, be capable of now? Could mind control already operate at a planetary scale, woven into entertainment, news, and even the architecture of our daily lives? But that's only the surface. Let's go deeper, because the true architects of this design may not be content with shaping emotion. They may be scripting reality itself. The more we trace the threads, the more we find the same names surfacing again and again. Illuminati, Skull and Bones, Rosicrucians, groups wrapped in shadows, their histories blurred between myth and record, yet always tied to hidden symbols, ancient codes, and forbidden knowledge. Publicly, they studied philosophy, alchemy, astrology. Privately, they applied these codes as tools of power, embedding them into the very foundations of politics, finance, and culture. What is most disturbing is not that they existed, but that fragments of their writings suggest a deliberate strategy carried through decades to shape not only institutions, but imagination itself. Among the scattered papers, one detail stands out: a letter dated 1933, attributed to a member of Skull and Bones. Its words are chilling in their clarity. It speaks of the need to occupy the imagination of the child in order to mold the adult of the future. The sentence reveals an agenda that goes far beyond influence. It is about colonizing the subconscious at its most fragile stage, embedding symbols and patterns that would resurface years later as unquestioned truths. Have you ever wondered why the same motifs from childhood stories seem to echo in politics, in media, in brands you encounter as an adult? Perhaps this was never coincidence, but continuity, an invisible ritual disguised as culture. Secret societies always understood what modern psychology later confirmed. The human mind is most malleable when young, most vulnerable when enchanted. Fairy tales, cartoons, symbols disguised as wonder, these become the new temples, the new rituals. Once, initiates trained for years in secret halls. Now, millions of children around the world undergo the same process without ever realizing it. The result is not awareness, but programming. And the question that follows is unsettling. If imagination itself can be manipulated, how much of what we call free will survives? Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." Look deeper at the pattern. The Rosicrucians spoke of hidden symbols as vessels of truth. The Illuminati elevated secrecy as a weapon against the masses. Skull and Bones recruited the sons of elites, ensuring continuity of influence across generations. These were not isolated groups. They formed a network, a shadow government of the unseen, using ancient codes as operating systems for modern power. The repetition of their symbols in architecture, in logos, in films is not random. It is ritual. Occult rituals rewritten for the masses, absorbed without resistance, carried forward into every sphere of life. And here lies the greatest revelation. These societies may not have vanished at all. Their names linger in whispers, their influence suspected in political decisions, their marks visible in plain sight. If they once sought to shape the future by molding imagination, then what of today, when entertainment, technology, and media reach billions simultaneously? If their goal was to guide humanity silently from the shadows, how far has that influence now extended? And perhaps the more pressing question, if their hand is still at work, what kind of future are they building for us without ever asking for our consent? When the fragments are placed side by side, the pattern grows impossible to ignore. What appear to be harmless details, symbols sketched in the corners of animations, numbers slipped into storylines, geometric forms shining in castles and logos, suddenly align into something larger. The eye, the spiral, the star, the sacred number. Each one a piece, each one echoing ancient codes known to secret societies and occult traditions. And when Disney's creations are examined not as isolated works of fantasy, but as part of a timeline spanning decades, they begin to resemble a mosaic, a hidden map of power, a ritual in plain sight. The question is whether we are looking at mere coincidence or something deliberately scripted. Could the repetition of these hidden symbols across films, parks, and media simply be artistic choices recycled over time? Or is it the careful hand of societies who, for centuries, used symbols and rituals to anchor forbidden knowledge into culture? If mind control depends on subtle influence, if the subconscious can be shaped through imagery and sound, then what better stage than the global empire of fantasy itself? An empire trusted by parents, adored by children, and accepted as harmless by the masses. Imagine the scale. Generations raised under the same imagery, their emotions tied to characters, their identities shaped by stories. Nostalgia itself becomes a weapon. The very symbols introduced in childhood resurface in adulthood, woven into politics, corporations, global narratives. It is as if the imagination of the child has been colonized to shape the obedience of the adult. This is not random influence. This is ritual disguised as entertainment, psychological influence hidden behind wonder. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." And yet the shadows thrive in ambiguity. They hide behind the plausible deniability of coincidence, knowing that the repetition of ancient codes will be dismissed as imagination. But history shows us that secret societies never abandoned their symbols, never stopped performing their rituals. They simply adapted. What was once whispered in temples is now sung in soundtracks. What was once carved in stone is now drawn in animation. The dark agenda remains unseen, but its fingerprints stretch across the very fabric of culture. The final question is yours to carry. When you see these symbols, when you notice their persistence across decades, across industries, across the very architecture of entertainment, do you believe they are coincidences? Or do you sense a hidden power orchestrating them? An unseen hand weaving conspiracies into the stories we love most? But that's only the surface. Let's go deeper. Because if the symbols we thought were innocent are fragments of a forbidden design, then what lies beyond them may be a truth we were never meant to uncover. You've walked with me until the final moment of this journey, and that already means something. Few dare to question what lies behind the veil of entertainment, symbols, and hidden rituals. Tonight, we piece together fragments, ancient codes, secret societies, psychological influence, woven into stories millions accept as innocent. But if you made it this far, you are not like the millions. You are awake enough to sense that truth and illusion are not opposites, but layers of the same design. What we uncovered is more than curiosity. It is forbidden knowledge slipping into the light. If this message stirred something inside you, let it be known. Leave a trace. Write in the comments, "I see the hidden truth," or "No one will control my mind." These are not just words. They are signals, symbols of resistance against manipulation, small flames in a world of shadows. Each comment becomes part of a collective awakening, each voice a thread that weakens the net of control. And if this resonance touched you, acknowledge it softly. Press the like, not as a routine action, but as a sign, an invisible spark that says, "I understand, and I am here. Your presence matters." It tells the unseen that awareness cannot be silenced. And if you wish to keep uncovering, subscribe. But think of it not as following a channel. See it instead as entering a circle, a hidden order of seekers who refuse to be blinded by coincidence. Each revelation you encounter here is a step deeper into the labyrinth of truth. This is not the end. The next video is already waiting, like a sealed manuscript, ready to unfold another piece of the puzzle. Think of it as the next chamber in an ancient temple, the next door behind the veil. The journey does not conclude. It continues, darker, stranger, closer to the core of what has always been hidden. Before you go, carry this question. Have you noticed these symbols in films, in brands, in places you walk every day? Share your vision below, because together we trace the map they tried to hide. And once the pieces connect, the shadows no longer control the story. The light belongs to those who dare to see. Stay alert, because the game of symbols never ends, and the unseen is always watching.